Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Mardek. And we are making our way through the Trilobite Cave. Now, basically, each of these areas that we go in through will require that we have one of the Trilobite keys. So there are 4 in total, so we could, I suppose, use that to anticipate just how far through this area we are. And there is that Zac level that we were anticipating previously. And the odd thing is that for whatever reason, the number on the keys is not necessarily corresponded to the order in which we found them. I couldn't tell you as to what number the first key that we got from Gope was, but it was not number 1. And so I believe that is why we could have gone through here and made it into the first area, at least, only after we got, I think it was the second of the keys. And there you have it, actually, an example of Dugan getting hit with a magical attack that was water elemental, and we did, just recently, put the Trilobite armor on him, giving him 160% resistance to water, especially because, well, his armor's giving him some of that, but he is also using the resist water passive reaction. Passive skill, I should say. So there's an example of it being a factor. And I believe we will find that this area will have only 3 chests in it, so comparatively not as full of loot as the other areas. However, hopefully we can still find some good stuff. The Trilobite armor, and it's going to be hard to top that, of course. It is very good. Here we actually have an example of some enemies other than Trilobites and Coelacanths. Now these guys are quick, which means they will get attacks in before we go, even before Zac, which is saying something. See, this one is the strongest. Not that that's going to be terribly important against these guys. They're pretty low HP. Emla is actually out of MP. We've been going through here for a while and have not done any of that. Leech an MP with attacks, and granted, she has to hit in order for that to work out. However, this is a good opportunity for us to work a little bit on those defensive reactions. So it's not the end of the world. And I suppose we could perhaps hold off on using any MP generating items on Emla. Although if this continues and she does not get the opportunity to leech any more mana soon, then maybe it is worth throwing on a mana berry or something of that sort. Okay. Let's carry on though. I think it is Zac and Mardek are the 2 that need the physical reactions the most. I could be wrong about that. Testing my memory here. Offensive reactions, fortunately, Zac does not need any, so not a huge deal that I missed that one. Emla, of course, still does not have MP. As for who we ought to be technically attacking here, Trilobites have 5 defense, whereas the Coelacanths only have 3. Except the Coelacanths have 100% resistance to fire, whereas the Trilobites only have 50. This is going to be a fire elemental attack, because it is using the fire rod, so for that reason, it seems like we need to use it against the Trilobites. And Dugan, I think we actually may need more magic reactions than we do defensive reactions or physical reactions, and therefore I think it actually makes sense for us to deliberately focus on taking out the Coelacanths first, and perhaps leaving the Trilobites instead. Oh, and I did need to get that reaction there with Dugan. That is something we ought to be working on, so I need to get my reaction game going here. And there we have one against Emla. She is someone who's working on them. Mardek, I think, as well. There you have an example of, again, Dugan getting healed by that attack. Granted, he does still get the -10 agility, which is pretty extreme. I think we continue along this line, though, and deliberately attack the fish, lead the Trilobites, and Emla, keep leeching that MP. One day, you'll be able to use your abilities again. And now, do we deliberately keep 2 Trilobites up? Sure, let's give it a shot. Now, Dugan does not have any magic defensive reactions, so nothing to work on there, unfortunately. He has an opportunity to boost, though, as well. I suppose we could take this as a chance for us to work a little bit on those reactions here. Zac will probably take this guy out. But yeah, Mardek probably can take this guy out here as well, so that may be the end of things here. It's actually closer than I thought it was going to be. That gets us a little bit closer. I think Mardek might only be a couple of reactions away at this point. Hopefully. Three away. Other people working on defensive reactions, like I said, I think Emla, she's a ways to go. However, I don't think she has quite as many chest plates that we might want to put on her, so we're probably not as concerned about that happening quickly. And Zach does actually need the physical ones and has a ways to go before he masters that. So Mardek and Zach are the ones we're most concerned about at this stage. Let's double check our map here, make sure we're not missing anything. And I really like this area because, as we will start to see, it swirls around like a big spiral, like, say, a Trilobite shell. And I think there's chests up here. There is. These guys, however, they're gonna guard it. So do we try deliberately to do a little bit more of the same here? Let Trilobites hit us a few times with the magic abilities? That might not be a bad idea. Allows Emla to continue to leech up a tiny bit more MP. Unfortunately, only 3 or 4 MP per turn. It's going to be quite a while until she can use her spells aggressively again. I think we do continue to use boost here, though. Does make Dugan more powerful for when he does, ultimately, opt to use his attacks. Mardek, I think we don't need anything on him. Because he just don't attack Dugan. I mean, Turret doesn't deal any damage to him, so in some ways that is nice, but at the same time, we don't have anything that we're working on with him, so I would prefer if you would attack Mardek, preferably, with the spells. Emla does now have enough MP to at least do a tiny bit of casting, but we'll continue to take this opportunity here to leech up a little bit more, and boost a little bit more. Zach apparently does not have any magic defenses either, so please stop hitting them. Go for Mardek or Emla. That was the whole point. You guys gotta cooperate. Alright, and Zach, we'll have you take this Trilobite out entirely. Emla, leech a little more MP, and we might be at the point now where we're feeling okay. That's starting to use some skills again with Emla. Here we go, there's 1. 2 more for Mardek before he masters his magic defensive reaction. Probably, I mean, Mardek's actually taking a fair bit of damage here. Probably not something that we want to have happen in this specific fight. Might want to take this opportunity to heal up a little bit. Do that with Mardek out of battle relatively efficiently. We just do a quick heal basically across the board, I suppose. Dugan doesn't need it, again. That Trilobite armor, water resistance, that's the difference right there. You saw Mardek took a bunch of damage, the other characters a fair bit as well. Dugan, full HP. Not a problem. Breastplate, it is a decent chest plate that I do believe we ended up purchasing at one point. Again, one of those instances where, theoretically, we could have opted not to purchase it from the shop, and ultimately we would have gotten it here. However, I think it did give us the opportunity to level up the damage soak ability early, to the point where we could master it on everyone who could equip it. So I think I stand by what we did earlier. I mean, that would have been a significant wait if we were to held off until we found it just then. Another chest here. Mugwort Juice. 500 HP heal, also. Certainly not bad. Very good, actually. We'll continue our way spiraling inward. There is that last chest in this area. And I think, if I remember correctly, so I was talking earlier about how there are certain places where different people like to grind abilities and experience. I think we are coming up on the area that I did far and away the most grinding on, at least for levels and experience. And you will see why that is quite soon, I believe. I do want to technically hit the one with the most HP here. And we could opt We're using some spells here with Emla. Granted, these guys actually don't have any magic or any physical defense or any fire resistance, so probably makes these guys good targets for leeching some MP. We get 8, a whopping 8. Imagine that. And they did attack Zack a fair bit there. See, the +6 strength on Dugan. There is a range of rolls that we can get on that. I think 6 is the highest. But ultimately, when he does opt to hit people, it will be all the more effective for that reason. I'm going to deliberately passive it here. Allow these guys to get another round of attacks in. Not terribly concerned about them, and as you see there, if they attack Zack, then it's worthwhile. He has a ways to go on his reaction, so I'm going to deliberately, I think, pass again, except for Emla, because she can leech, and Dugan, because he can boost. So this is the type of thing that I was talking about, where ideally you would use this against weaker enemies. These are not terribly strong enemies, so that's why I'm making a point of doing it now. But you could deliberately go to a very early game area and basically outright remove any risk of taking any damage at all. I think this will probably be the last round in which we do it. I don't mean to necessarily master everything this very moment, but as you see there, as long as the bats are hitting Zack in particular, then we're making progress. Now let's make progress of a different kind and take these guys out. Except I am still skeptical as to what... Oh, wait, what? Huh? Why'd that deal no damage? Is this a higher level one? I don't know. But anyways, I was gonna say, I was still pretty confident we could take all these guys out without having to worry about Emla using any of her spells. Granted, then I realized we probably wanted to use boost on Dugan, however, it paid off because it did mean that had another turn in which to attack Zack, and that's the person we wanted them to attack. So you can actually make the skill mastering happen relatively quickly if you take an approach like that. Like you see, Zack was not even close to mastering his defensive reaction before, and now he's over halfway. So it made a difference, and I think it was this stretch right here where I went back and forth down this area more times than I could count as my favorite location for grinding in Chapter 2 at least. So, familiar territory for me in that respect. And this is, perhaps, an opportunity to work on the magic reactions here, so we'll focus on the coelacanths, first and foremost. And we established that reaching from the Trilobites is better. Emla with 34 MP, I think we're fine now. We can probably be much more aggressive on the spells. But we'll give the Trilobites at least one round in which to attack us. With the hope of, yes, Emla or Mardek, ideally, being the targets of those attacks. Physical attacks against Zack, though, that also works. Emla, not as interested in that. So let's take out either coelacanth, I suppose. And, yeah, we'll get close to mastering boost here. I would like to do that. Even if we're not necessarily anticipating that Dugan will have a new sword anytime soon. That one that he has right now is quite strong. And unfortunately, there we have the magic abilities against people, well, we didn't want the magic abilities to go against. And do we start to use the spells? I suppose we could. It does, of course, mean that, well, there won't be any Trilobites to use those magic skills, but we'll carry on then. Okay. Better potion, not bad. Let's also take this opportunity to heal again with Mardek, because, yeah, on that occasion, Dugan did take a little bit of damage. He probably doesn't need a heal at this stage, especially when he would get healed if someone tried to hit him with water damage. We'll carry on. Actually advance through the cave at this stage. Like I was saying, we should be approaching what I believe is the last chest in this area. Down over here. And it's an ether. Restores a bunch of MP. And that probably doesn't make sense to put on Zack, like we were saying before. He actually does not have any skills yet that use MP. The only character falls under that category at this stage. And this would potentially be a good opportunity to work on the physical reactions as well, given that we have 3 enemies that are purely of the physical attacking variety at this moment. However, the bats are probably still the preferred way to go, because there are 4 of them. So, for that reason, let's just blast them with a stone explosion. And get some more fish scales while we're at it. Sure. And so if we duck in here, we will find... What? We're in a totally different type of area here. Lots of doors is what those blue indicators are, and the green ones are people, usually NPCs. However, this time around, not people. Very much not people. Welcome to Cambria, the village of Trilobites. It is my job to say that to visitors, you know. My wife and children starve because I get paid so little, since we get so few visitors that I rarely get to perform my duty at all. And I get paid by the full hours of work I've done, too, even though the whole duty takes but a few seconds. Oh, well. I'm sorry, Trilobite dude. And more Trilobites, of course. Humans! In our village? This is most strange. And so on and so forth. I've probably only ever read about you in books or something like that. Maybe. I guess so. Rather isolated Trilobite community in here. Excuse me, sir, I'd like to speak to you. This town has the best equipment in the region. Oh, yes, it does. Wield our weapons strongly and brag at all your many friends about how much better than them you are for owning such weapons. It is true. When we talk to the shopkeeper here, we will see that here in Cambria, you can pick up almost any of the weapons that we saw in previous locations, and including some that we actually did not encounter. So we have the rare silver swords that we saw. We have a mithril great blade, which we actually did see ever so briefly on Bartholomew from the World Saviors. We have all the typical bronze swords, long swords, nothing too special there. Even the mace that we got from fighting some of the zombies. The ancient sword, which was a tough find, but we did ultimately get that in the catacombs, so if you missed it, you could pick it up here. Granted, we did pick it up earlier, so we don't need it on this occasion. That actually does give Dugan a defensive magic reaction. That is perhaps a reason to put that back on, so all the more reason for us to master boost quickly. And that offensive reaction, too. There is still reason to switch back to that, but we have one. Then we have Zax's Shashiak, his starting weapon. Bone Slicer, if you missed that, you can pick it up here. We have Emila's Wands. She started off with the Water Rod. We did pick up the Fire Rod and the Earth Rod. However, we have not yet used the Lightning Rod, so that might be a good thing for us to pick up here. It costs 3,000 gold pieces. However, we haven't been purchasing very much, so that's actually not so bad at the moment. Let's definitely pick it up because it gives us the magic stun chance, offensive reaction, and also magic damage. Not bad. In addition to giving +1 spirit and the whole empowers air thing that supposedly does not actually work, but we'll take that. Thank you very much. And also, you'll notice there is the Shadow Blade here, which we actually could have gotten back in the catacombs. This is an item that if you farm up the catacombs area after the Morg fight, where we encountered the Abominations, which were those dark zombie-like enemies with the almost lightsaber-like looking swords, this is what that is. You can get those to drop off of those guys. It takes a fair bit of grinding, so that is another location that I would recommend grinding a bit. It is dangerous, but if you are up for the challenge, then you could get the Onyx Ring that we ultimately did end up getting, and also Shadow Blade would be another good drop. It's a Dark Elemental Sword imbued with the Eldritch powers. Probably. Gives Degeneration 10%. We'll have to check out what that is. And also 25 base damage, which is higher than the Silver Sword, actually by a pretty large amount. How does that stack up to other types? Way better than Bronze, Silver, even Iron. So it is technically the highest base damage sword we see here. As for the Keyblade, I think that was also quite high. 26 versus 25. Keyblade technically still slightly stronger, and we have not opted to use that. Technically speaking, it is preferable to the Silver Sword at the moment, because, well, we're not fighting undead enemies in here, mostly just trilobites and fish. That might actually be worth swapping over on Mardek, or the mace as well. It's 22. Okay, it's not as good as the Keyblade. But that is, I suppose, reason in and of itself to purchase the Shadow Blade. Now, if you did grind in the Catacombs, that does mean that you could save yourself 4,000 gold pieces, which is not bad. That's a pretty pricey item there. However, like I was saying, we're doing okay on that front. Was there actually any particular skill that we wanted from the Mithril Great Blade? I don't think so. I think it's mostly just an acknowledgement that this item exists and that Bartholomew uses it. However, there is one more thing that we definitely want to pick up, and that is the Twin Trilobites, which is a double sword, meaning that it is a Zac item. It has 26 attack, which is higher than the current Bone Slicer that we're using, only 22. So it's a double sword fashioned in the shape of trilobites for some reason. It also has Sure Slash, which is an active skill, and Quarry Insect, of all things, is an offensive reaction. And, like we saw before, higher attack damage, and that crit chance, let's take a look at that, 7% versus 7%. Okay, so that is still the same. Granted, Bone Slicer does still have that effective against undead modifier, meaning that if and when we are fighting zombies and skeletons, Bone Slicer, still the way to go. However, against non-undead enemies, a higher base damage of the Twin Trilobites will win out. Another instance of an expensive but definitely worthwhile item. This is the only place where you can get that item. It's not like we missed it in some previous location. No, that is where you get it. I believe we've spoken to both of these people. The Accessory Shop, it's a sign. Talking to it must be a rollicking lark. I believe we could have done the same thing to the weapon shop as well, but just to confirm. Indeed. Let's check out the Accessory Shop. And see if in here we find other useful things. And here, just that. We find the +2 rings. So we earlier saw one of the +2 rings of Vitality, but similar options here for Strength, Spirit, and Agility. So if we want a bunch of Agility and all these other things, then it is possible to pick those up here. Still not a huge fan of them. Of course, they do not have any skills that they teach. I think for the most part, yes, they are still kind of filling in gaps on characters that don't have a great second accessory, which at this stage in the game couldn't really be the case. But if in case we do find ourselves there, then maybe you could make an argument for picking these up. I'm just not a huge fan of them. We've seen the Gauntlet before. And actually, oh, Zac does not have this ability mastered. Wow, we do have at least one of these that we picked up previously, so I'm not too concerned about purchasing one of those here. But if, for example, you did not buy one in Canonia, which might be the only place where you can buy them, or at least the only other place, then you could pick it up here as well. The Silver Ring does also give that same -10% defensive reaction as the Gauntlet. Gauntlet being a little more offensively oriented because it has that strength, whereas the ring has one more defense. Here is the Onyx Ring. So as I was alluding to earlier, we happened to pick this up off of one of those fights against the Abominations. However, if you didn't manage to do that, then you could purchase one here. It does cost 800 gold pieces, which is not that much in comparison to the 4,000 that the Shadow Blade costs. So I suppose, relative to the Shadow Blade, this is less important from a financial standpoint that you managed to get one of these to drop, but it is still very good. Gives the Bright Eyes ability, which is the blind immunity, and also strong magic defense, a little bit of strength, lots of resistance to dark, complete resistance to blindness, even if you aren't using that ability. So this, honestly, I think you could make a pretty strong case for deliberately purchasing this, even if you already got one to drop, as we have, because it is just, all in all, a really strong item. And that way, you don't have to have quite a queue for leveling up that Bright Eyes ability. You could have multiple people working on it simultaneously, which I think could become relevant for us. Dugan is currently working on Resist Water, which takes up the vast majority of his RP for passive skills. However, once he's done with that, we may want to use Bright Eyes because getting blinded on a character that uses physical attacks is significant. So, given how many coins we have, I think I would actually like for us to purchase another one of these. And then similar story with the Moonstone Ring. I don't remember if there's anyone who actually drops this in fights. However, we did get one from a chest. I believe it was back in the latter part of the sewers, so just before the catacombs. And it's similar in that it has the Insomnia ability. Granted, we have a little more access to that because we have the Moonstone Ring that we picked up earlier, as well as the Cog Necklace, which is not as good as the Moonstone Ring because it doesn't have that 3 magic defense, doesn't have the +1 spirit, doesn't have the light resistance to go along with it. So it's basically just an upgraded Cog Necklace, however, pretty significantly upgraded one at that. So I think we do still take this. I think a little bit less of a case to be made for doubling up on these than you could make with the Onyx Ring, but no less useful. Green Vids. This is also technically an item that we have seen ever so briefly before on the World Saviors. Again, I think it was Alia, the healer, who was using this item, but I could be wrong about that. It does give 4 magic defense, which is actually extremely high. It's a necklace made of green, earthy beads. Gives no earth once. However, you see here, no one in our party can learn this ability. That's a little odd. But that high magic defense gives a little bit of earth resistance and a little bit of vitality. So that's one of the few ways to boost our earth resistance. We, of course, have the Geo Jacket, which is the primary way. But that is nifty. And it's not too expensive at 400 coins, so I think we definitely pick up at least one of these. You could maybe make the case if you know that you're going to be going up against enemies that deal a fair bit of earth damage, which, given how, again, Mork is the earth member of the Governance de Magi, that would suggest that you could also make the case for loading up on these a little bit. So maybe we take another one as well. And you could even do these on both accessory slots for every character if you're trying to maximize earth resistance. That is, you could make the case. That way, I mean, certainly the person using the Geo Jacket may not need that, but everyone else would get at least 40 earth resistance like that. That's not bad. There's also a Snake Stone here. We did pick one of these up in the Canonia Woods. However, if you missed that, again, this is an opportunity here if you make it into Cambria to make up for that. Granted, I think there's nothing stopping you from going back into Canonia Woods and picking this up after the fact, so that's also an option here. 2,000 coins for this, so probably a little more of a case to be made for making sure that you go back and not burn that much coins on this item here. Here we see the Body Crystal and Mind Crystal. We saw some of those earlier on in this cave, but I don't think that's urgent that we take them here. Belt of Movement. This is new. This is the only place you can get it. It's an accessory with 2 defense. This belt protects against paralysis and boosts agility. But it has Locomotion, which is the passive skill that will prevent us from getting paralyzed. So, pretty useful, because we've had that happen, I think, once or twice to us. It's not terribly common, but when it does happen, it is a powerful effect to have on your character, so you'll want to get that taken off soon. And I don't think it's anything that we can remove with Remove Taint, so it's hard to get rid of as well. And it gives that defense plus 3 agility. So this is actually better than even a Ring of Agility in that regard. So could also make the case for doubling up on this to just totally overload a character with agility and give yourself complete resistance to paralysis. For example, you put 2 of these on Zack, who is by default our fastest character. Put the Bandit Leather as well. We're talking 2 of these is plus 6 agility. Bandit Leather, plus an additional 2. That's 8 in total. That's a lot. Also, if you learn the plus 1 agility skill from Bandit Leather, that's plus 9 in total. Suddenly, Zack is almost guaranteed, basically guaranteed, to go first. So if that's a concern, then that is a great way to address that. It is very expensive at 5,000 coins. So you see, we were starting off going in here with a lot of coins. Not so much anymore. We had been rather stingy with our spending earlier. But you see, when it comes to these great shops here, well, your money may not go that far. Here's another sign for the armor shop this time. How else can we spend our monies? And here you see, it is possible to pick up even more of the Trilobite armors. We did get one for free in the cave here. We're currently using on Dugan, and this is a fantastic piece of armor, as I was saying earlier. So, And we're getting pretty low on the coins at the moment, so we could only purchase one of them if we wanted to. I think you could also make a case for loading up on these, because, again, if you're anticipating you're going to be fighting some enemies that are dealing water damage, then no better way of protecting yourself against that than to heal from water damage. That's tempting. Let's take a look if there's anything else we want to purchase first, though, to make sure that we have enough coins. Because we also see there's a green robe, which gives 6 magic defense in comparison to Emla's 4 magic defense hempen robe. So it is more powerful there. It's a green mage's robe that allows the wearer to resist earth damage. Gives a new defensive magic reaction. Is that? Yes, it is. Above and beyond Emla's current minus 20%, minus 30. Add all that stuff together, and I think she already has a minus 10% that she mastered, yes, from her original robe. So that's 10%. Plus 20 more, it's 30 in total. Plus 30 more is 60 in total. So she's taken less than half the initial damage that she would normally be taking from magic abilities. So that can turn her into a surprisingly defensive character, at least when it comes to taking hits from magic skills. That is also certainly intriguing. Also, fairly expensive at 4,000 coins. But that's very tempting. Leather armor, I think we've seen it before. It is just 1 defense, so not fantastic there. And we've already mastered this reaction that I think you can get on the chainmail that we started off with. Or something else, because apparently the chainmail is minus 20%. Next, we see there's the bandit leather armor. And so here's another instance of, yes, you could get this for free, and you can get it much, much earlier if you go back after the Muria's fight and pick it up there. However, it was also an item that we wanted to make sure that we got many people to use, because that evasion and +1 agility skill, both very helpful, and even Emla can use it if I remember correctly. Let me just double check that. Yes, that is true. So still, Zach is working on it. Still, Emla has not gotten the chance to use it. We are anticipating that Zach will swap over to either Trilobite armor or maybe even Vern's armor later on, so I'm not necessarily sure we need to double up on the bandit leather yet, but you could make a case for that too. Bone mail, similarly, item that is a little bit tricky to get in the catacombs, because I believe it's behind one of those hidden areas, and therefore if you missed it there, you could still go back to get it for free. However, you could load up even further and pick one up here for 2,500. Relatively high defense as well, and a resistance to dark is useful too. So I suppose you could make a case for getting 2 of them just for the purpose of loading up on dark resistance. That's also not bad. And then we see the various robes that we started off with or got relatively early on. More hats, including the kettle hat, which is the 2 defense hat, which is very good because, well, that is currently better than Mardek's helm. Remind me, Emla cannot use the kettle hat. In truth, it's more of a helmet. The hat descriptor is a little bit deceptive because Emla can wear hats, she cannot wear helmets. So, although she can use this one, she cannot use this one. However, we would like to get one for Mardek, and Vern as well. However, since he's currently sitting on the sideline, presumably, if we were to swap Zach out for Vern, then we could just move the kettle hat as well. But that's relatively inexpensive. Let's pick that up. Throw that on Mardek, give him a little more defense. And as for what the best way to spend our remaining coins might be, I think it's either the Trilobite armor or the green robe. Like I was saying, you could make a case for the bone mail. We actually, could afford the bone mail plus 1 other chest plate. We do already have a Trilobite armor, but I think we go for the green robe here. And let's pick up the bone mail as well. And then if and when we do find ourselves getting back up to 5,000 coins, then we'll look at picking up another Trilobite armor, because, yeah, I would recommend picking 2 more of these, so that you can have at least 3 on hand, and that way everyone except for Emla who can't equip it has the opportunity to equip it. And yes, so we have now blown through all of our monies. So let's save, and immediately regret that we spent so much. No, I think it's actually quite good. Like I said, the reason why it is worth spending all that stuff here is because all of it is so good. So, with that, I think this is a good place for us to wrap up this video. And in the next one, we'll continue to check out what else is in Cambria here, besides just amazing shops.